The dreaded alarm clock, the arch nemesis of sleep, interrupting peaceful dreams and happy thoughts with the harsh reality of a cold world. And yet, despite being almost universally hated, the world runs on these little devices. Whether it be to get ready for work, or to start off the day with a morning run, or in a teenager's case, get ready for another day of school. Alarm clocks are king. When we were asked to come up with a psychology final, we immediately had the idea to experiment with the amount of sleep being cut off by early schedules in teenagers and their visual memory. And so, that's exactly what we did. In order to determine how sleep affected our visual memories, we had to find participants with a wide range between their hours of sleep. The bare minimum amount of sleep necessary not be considered deprived is 8 hours, but 10 is preferred. Obviously, everything else would deprive the body of necessary sleep. When looking for participants, it wasn't surprising that it was harder to find people with more than 8 hours of sleep. I mean, we got that teenager schedule going on. When all was said and done, we had 4 participants, 2 guys and 2 girls. Each gender had one sleep-deprived schedule of 4 to 5 hours and a regular sleep schedule of 8 to 9 hours. Now that we had our participants, it was time to test them each morning for a school week to determine how sleep deprivation affected their visual memories. But how did we test their visual memories? 2 words. Chimp Test. The Chimp Test is a simple memory game. You're given randomly placed digits, 1 to 4 to start, and upon selecting 1, the other 3 turn blank and you have to remember the order of the numbers. Each successful attempt will increase the amount of digits by 1, and you go until you lose. You may be wondering why they call it the Chimp Test, and well, just take a look. Yeah, they're pretty good at this game. Anyways, each morning when a participant woke up, they would play this game 3 times and report their best score for that particular day. The point being, we could say how scores differed between sleep-deprived and non-sleep-deprived individuals and draw some conclusions from there. So what did our study turn up? Were their results so shaking they could single-handedly change the psychological field forever? Well, let's look at our results. Our sleep-deprived male only had a low score of 7 and a high score of 10, with his average score rounding up to a 9. Our sleep-deprived female had a low score of 5 and a high score of 8, with their average score rounding down to a 6. Together, the sleep-deprived group makes up an average score of 7.6, which rounds up to a solid 8. How does the group of students getting an adequate amount of sleep compare? Well, our sleep-fulfilled male had a low score of 5 and a high score of 7, with the rounded average score of 6. And our girl, she had a low score of 5 and a high score of 8, with their average score matching their sleep-deprived counterpart exactly, even before rounding down to a 6. Their combined average is a 6.3, which rounds down to a 6. So the sleep-deprived group scored 2 points higher on average than the sleep-fulfilled group, which is surprising to some of you, I'm sure. We were surprised too. So let's look at some of the variables that could have skewed our results. Sometimes you have to face the facts and recognize the problems with your study. The only variable we had total control over was the amount of sleep participants were getting. Whether or not they exerted more energy was not taken into account, where they slept, what they did leading up going to sleep, and other random variables could have easily affected our results. Also, some of these participants could be considered built different. Take for instance our sleep-deprived male. His low score was a 7, and he scored 2 10s across the week. His scores were the reason the sleep-deprived group were as ahead as they were, and he could be considered an outlier. We recognize this as a shortcoming of our experiment. Without a large sample size, it is surprisingly easy for data to occur by chance, meaning there's more than a good chance that the data we found is not statistically significant. Because our experiment is more about the principles of psychology, we won't call it a failure, but if some of you are hoping for some better results, allow me to introduce you to Bjorn Rash. Bjorn Rash is a biopsychologist that has conducted a variety of experiments and studies over sleep. One of his studies is about sleep's role in memory. It's a long article and it tackles a variety of different hypotheses and ideas about sleep and its connections to memory. I'll spare you the long, boring details and get straight to the basic point. Sleep equals good for memory. Why? Well, you may have heard about stages you undergo while sleeping. These are the NREM sleep cycles and the REM, or REM, sleep cycle. The gist is that while sleeping, your body will move through these cycles, and during some of these stages, especially the REM cycle, your mind is able to consolidate memories better. By sleeping longer, your body will get to enter REM cycles and other beneficial cycles more frequently and boost your memory in the process. Pretty interesting stuff, right? Well, our psychological study may have been a bust, but the information we gathered by researching other psychological studies was just as beneficial. At least that's what we like to think. With a larger sample size, more time, and more control over random variables, we still think our experiment is capable of showing significant results. But until that happens, thanks for watching.